I felt my world shatter the moment I found the pattern in our bank statements. Small cash withdrawals every Friday for months, always when my wife claimed to be working overtime at the department store. 21 years of marriage, 2 decades of trust, gone in an instant over a string of $50 withdrawals that made no sense. My wife worked cleaning houses for Molly Mae during the day, some evenings at the department store. It was hard work, and I admired her for it. The kids' college tuition wasn't going to pay for itself, but now I saw her schedule differently, the perfect cover for something else. Our kids were both in college now. The house was empty. I thought we'd grow closer in this new chapter of our lives. Instead, she grew distant. I blamed it on exhaustion at first, long shifts, the physical toll of cleaning houses all day, and then some days, go to her second job. The first real red flag was her phone, always password protected, always with her no matter where she went. This was from a woman who used to leave it charging in the kitchen overnight. When I mentioned it casually, she said it was because of work scheduling apps. Couldn't risk missing a shift. It didn't make sense to me, but I said okay. I tried checking her location one night when she said she was working late at the store. The map showed her there, just as she claimed, but something made me drive by. Her car wasn't in the parking lot, not in the employee section, not anywhere nearby. Someone with her tech skills could easily fake a location. She always handled our computers, phones, and streaming services. I never questioned why a house cleaner was so good with technology. Now I understood. It was her shield. Her prepaid phone plan meant no detailed call logs, no text records. She told me it was a better deal months ago. I believed her then. Another lie in what I was beginning to see was a carefully constructed facade. When I asked about the cash withdrawals, she wouldn't look at me, just mumbled something about emergency money, which I thought was BS. I knew what a lie sounded like after 21 years. I checked the computer we shared. Browser history was always clean. No suspicious emails in our joint account. She was too smart for that. If there was evidence, it wasn't where I could find it. But she'd changed in ways beyond the digital trail. Little things, a new fragrance all of a sudden, working late when the store closed at 9, going to inventory on her days off. Times when I called the store for her and was told she wasn't scheduled. I followed her one Tuesday when she claimed to be doing inventory, but she wasn't scheduled. I watched her park at the mall, but she never entered the store where she worked. Instead, she walked to a coffee shop on the other side of the complex. Every trail I followed led to a dead end. Someone was covering their tracks perfectly. I wasn't tech savvy enough to break through the digital wall she'd built. I really couldn't keep doing this shit. This was killing me mentally. It started to affect my mental state, and I had enough. I hired a private investigator so he could deal with this, and we live in Georgia. Private investigators are everywhere. I sat across from the private investigator in his small office. No fancy decorations like in the movies, just a desk and file cabinets. The reality of infidelity investigations was far less glamorous than Hollywood made it seem. The PI told me straight up that my wife's tech knowledge made this harder. Not impossible, but harder. People who know how to cover digital tracks require more traditional surveillance. In a way, her technological savvy made her vulnerable to old school methods. I explained everything. The cash withdrawals, the schedule inconsistencies, the empty parking lot when her location showed she was at work, the changes in her behavior, the coffee shop instead of inventory, all the small threads that together formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. The PI didn't judge, didn't offer false hope or worst-case scenarios, just took notes and explained how he'd proceed, what evidence he could legally gather, what would stand up in court if it came to that. I paid his retainer, and it cost me $8,200. Days passed with nothing significant. I got regular updates via encrypted email, normal routines, work at Molly Maid, shifts at the department store, all matching her stated schedule. I began to wonder if I'd made a terrible mistake, wasted money on paranoid suspicions. Then I got an email that changed and confirmed my suspicions. My wife was leaving Molly Maid 2 hours early on Fridays, every Friday, on the same day as those cash withdrawals. Another update confirmed location spoofing. Her phone showed at work while she was elsewhere. The PI had followed her and watched her park, then activate something on her phone before leaving on foot. Technology used to create a perfect alibi. At home, I played normal, asked about her day, pretended everything was fine. Inside, I was dying, looking at the woman I'd loved for 21 years and seeing a stranger, wondering who she really was when she wasn't with me. 3 weeks into the investigation, I got a text from the PI. He'd found something and wanted to meet immediately. The urgency in his message told me this wasn't a small discovery. I made an excuse to leave work early and drove to his office. My heart was beating hard and fast while driving to see the private investigator. Part of me didn't want to know. I wanted to turn around and pretend none of this was happening, but I kept driving. My heart stopped when I saw the photos. My wife entering a mid-range hotel, different dates, same hotel. Sometimes alone, sometimes meeting a man in the lobby, a man I'd never seen before. But the real shock came with the next set of photos. My wife with a woman at that same coffee shop I'd seen her visit, holding hands across the table, leaning in close. In the last photo, a quick kiss before parting. According to the PI's notes, Friday afternoons were for him, Tuesday mornings for her. Different people, different days, a precisely scheduled double life. 21 years of marriage, and I never once suspected my wife might be interested in women. Never had a clue she wanted anything beyond what we had. The betrayal was doubled, not just by the number of affairs, but by how little I apparently knew the person I'd shared my life with. The deception cut deeper than the affairs themselves. Every detail calculated, every digital trace erased, every lie rehearsed. The level of planning showed this wasn't a mistake or a momentary weakness. This was calculated and deliberate. I asked for more evidence, videos and additional photos, and anything he could get his hands on. Didn't really care how he got it. Just make sure it would hold up in court if needed. The PI agreed to continue for another week, building an ironclad case. That night, I lay next to her in bed, feeling nothing but ice in my veins. This stranger had shared my bed for years, kissed me goodbye each morning, all while living a completely separate life I knew nothing about. The final report arrived a week later, a thick folder of evidence, times, dates, locations, text message records the PI had somehow obtained, irrefutable proof of a double life. Now I had to decide what to do with it. In the meantime, I made an appointment to get STD tested. I hadn't planned on confronting her that day. The PI's final report had arrived that morning, but I tucked it into my briefcase, thinking I needed more time to process everything before saying anything. That evening, we were in the car, driving back from dinner. It was supposed to be a normal Thursday night, just grabbing food at that Thai place we'd been going to for years. Nothing special, but the entire meal, I'd barely said a word, the weight of what I knew crushing me from the inside. In the car's confined space, with rain beating against the windows and creating a private world, something inside me finally broke. I know about the Courtyard Hotel and about Diane at the coffee shop. I pulled the car over to the shoulder of the road, headlights from passing vehicles briefly illuminating her face every few seconds. I could see the expression on her face. She had that stone face look, no denial, no outrage at being accused, just a blank look of someone whose carefully constructed deception was collapsing. With shaking hands, I reached into my briefcase in the back seat and pulled out the manila envelope. Friday afternoons at the hotel with him, Tuesday mornings at the coffee shop with her. I removed the photos one by one, placing them on the dashboard in front of her. The PI documented everything. 21 years, I kept saying to myself, 21 years down the drain, all the anniversaries, the hardships we'd faced together, the raising of our children, building a life, all undermined by lies, no tears, no yelling, just silence as she stared at the evidence. The quiet was worse than any argument could have been. No defense meant no excuses, no justifications I could argue against. When she finally asked how long I'd known, I told her that really didn't matter compared to the years of her deception. Her hands trembled as she looked at each photo. I could see her mind working, likely calculating on what set me off to have her followed, the technological shields that had failed her. She tried to tell me she never meant to hurt me. I laughed, a hollow sound in the rain-filled car. If she had meant to hurt me, she would have ended our marriage before starting other relationships. The hurt wasn't in her wanting something different. It was in the lies. I pointed out all her careful plans, the spoofed location, the cash withdrawals to avoid credit card trails, every step calculated to maintain her secret life while keeping me in the dark. She mumbled something about not being able to be who I needed. I corrected her. She couldn't be honest. That was the difference. Honesty would have given me choices. Deception took those choices away. Rain pounded harder on the roof. Windshield wipers the only sound between us. Such a normal sound during the collapse of my life. The contrast was jarring. Life continuing normally outside, while everything inside was destroyed. I asked how many others there had been. She claimed just these two. When I asked how long, she admitted to 3 years with him and almost a year with Diane. 3 years of lies, while we celebrated anniversaries, while we helped our kids move to college, while we planned retirement. 3 years where every conversation, every intimate moment, every plan for the future had been based on a fundamental lie. I started the car and drove us home in silence. Inside the house, I handed her the divorce papers I'd already prepared. I'd be fair about the house and savings, I told her, but I was done. There was no coming back from this level of betrayal. She seemed shocked, wanted me to try to understand. What was there to understand? That she'd been lying for years? That our whole life together had been fake? Understanding wasn't the issue. Trust was, and that was irreparably broken. She insisted it wasn't all a lie. I told her enough of it was. Even if parts of our marriage had been genuine, the deception had poisoned everything. I could never look at a single memory without questioning its authenticity now. She paced the living room, saying she didn't know how to tell me about wanting different things. So, instead, she built an elaborate system of lies, used her tech skills to cover her tracks, because she was afraid, and I was faithful. Through all the challenges, through the hard times, I had honored our vows while she made a mockery of them. I gathered the evidence back into the envelope. The PI had made copies for court, if needed. I wouldn't leave these images for her to destroy. As I packed a bag upstairs, I heard her crying downstairs. I felt nothing. The betrayal had hollowed me out completely. Any love I had felt was now buried under an avalanche of lies, too heavy to dig through. I didn't expect the divorce to become a battle. I thought the evidence would lead to a quick, quiet settlement. I was wrong. Her initial filing demanded alimony and 60% of our assets. Claimed she sacrificed career advancement for our family. Her lawyer painted a picture of a dedicated wife blindsided by divorce after years of supporting our household. My lawyer silently placed the PI's report on the conference table during our first mediation session. We stated I was willing to split assets equally. Given the circumstances, this was generous. Her lawyer's face darkened as he flipped through the pages. They immediately requested a break. I watched my wife whisper frantically to her attorney in the hallway. When they returned, her demands had changed dramatically. No more requests for alimony, no more claims of unfair treatment. The weeks that followed brought paperwork, appraisals, and division of everything we had built together: our home, retirement accounts, even family photos. Everything that had once represented our shared life now reduced to assets and liabilities on a spreadsheet. My children were shocked by the divorce announcement. I kept my promise not to share details, simply saying we had grown apart. They didn't need their image of their mother destroyed. That burden was mine alone to carry. My daughter mentioned her mom wouldn't talk about it, just cried and changed the subject whenever asked. I told her it was between her mother and me. They didn't need to take sides or be dragged into adult problems. My son asked directly if there was someone else. He was always more perceptive. I considered lying to protect their relationship with their mother. I simply told him the marriage ended because trust was broken. That was all they needed to know. I struggled adjusting to living alone after 2 decades of marriage. New apartment, new routines, new emptiness. The divorce finalized on a rainy Wednesday, 6 months after I discovered the affairs. My wife looked smaller somehow in the courtroom, diminished. The judge approved our settlement: no alimony, equal division of assets, split equity in the house when the house sells. Outside the courthouse, under the shelter of the building's overhang, she approached, wanting to talk, not about the divorce itself, but something more personal. We found a bench under an awning, the rain creating a private space around us. She apologized, not just for the affairs, for how she handled everything afterward, for the initial demands in the divorce, for not taking responsibility sooner. I really didn't have much to say. Apologies couldn't rebuild what had been destroyed. She admitted the PI was smart. She thought she'd covered everything, created the perfect digital alibi, never considered old school surveillance. I told her she almost did succeed. Technology made her overconfident, made her forget that humans can still see what screens might miss. She mentioned that neither relationship had lasted. Her Tuesday and Friday arrangements had both ended shortly after our separation. Said she wanted me to know it wasn't worth it. The destruction of our marriage had gained her nothing lasting. I asked if that was supposed to matter to me, if their failure somehow made her betrayal less significant. It didn't. The damage was done regardless of what happened with her other relationships. We sat in silence for a moment, rain pattering above us, 2 decades of shared history between us, now ending under a courthouse awning. She finally said 21 years was a long time. Not all of it was bad. Not everything had been a lie. I had to agree. Not all of it was bad. We had raised good children, had good moments, but those memories were now tainted, viewed through the lens of her deception. 6 months after the divorce, my son told me his mother had moved to Arizona, started fresh in a new state, left behind the ruins of her double life. The house sold for more than expected in a rising market. My lawyer forwarded her portion without my having to see her again. Another tie severed. Gradually, I found new rhythms in life, reconnected with old friends, developed new interests. The pain dulled from sharp to occasional ache, not healed but manageable. One evening, cleaning out files, I found the PI's card tucked in a folder, called to thank him again for his thorough work, for the clarity his evidence had provided. He told me most people suspect something's wrong years before they call him. Not knowing is worse than the truth. The suspicions that eat away at you night after night. He was right. Despite everything, knowing had freed me from doubt, from gaslighting, from a marriage built on deception. The betrayal had ended 21 years of marriage, but it had also released me from a life of lies, from a relationship that wasn't what I thought it was. Some days, that almost felt like a gift. Oh, by the way, my STD checkup came back clean.